Hi, this is a quick demo to show you how to do a drop shadow in Inkscape. So the first thing you have to do is figure out what you're going to make a drop shadow on. I want to make a drop shadow on this fedora logo. So first of all, Inkscape's a vector program, so I need to make sure that the logo that I'm working with is vector for this technique to work. You can just take the node tool in the toolbox, it's the second one down on the left, and start clicking around on the object. And here I can see I have nodes and vector paths, so it's pretty clear that this object I'm working with is vector, so this technique will work. There's a technique to do this using bitmaps in Inkscape too. I don't recommend that, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is select the object you want to add the drop-down shadow to. Then hit Control D, or you can go Menu, Edit, Duplicate to do the same thing. And what that does is it copy-pastes the object in place, perfectly aligned on top. So here I have the top one selected, and I'm going to hit the arrow key, Shift arrow key down, and you'll see that, oh okay, there's two of them here now. So I'm going to take this new one that's on top, I'm going to shift it down slightly so you can see that there's two there. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color it in a dark color. And that's going to serve as my drop shadow. So I'm just going to pick like a medium gray. Okay, there's, my drop shadow. So then I'm going to hit Shift, arrow up to move it back. And you see, I'm using arrow keys for all of this because I want my positioning to be very precise. If I didn't care as much, I'd probably just use the mouse, but I like being pretty precise with that kind of thing. And I went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, so I moved it 3 down and 3 to the right to offset it a little bit. But you can see now we have our drop shadow on top. That's not really cool. That doesn't make it a drop shadow. It makes it a top shadow, I guess. So to move it down, what you're going to do is hit page down. And if you goof up and you want it back up, hit page up to move it back up again. That is a little Inkscape trick. If an alternative way, if you don't remember the shortcuts, is you go to Object, Lower, and it gives you a little handy guide on the right that says page down. So I'm going to hit lower. There it is. And this is a pretty basic drop shadow. You want to add a little bit of a blur to it. This won't be open for you by default, but go to Object, Fill and Stroke. This pane will open up on the right, and you can select a different blur level. I don't like going too crazy with the blur, so I might just do 1.0. And then I actually like a really light touch on my drop shadows, so I'm going to pick a lighter color for it. And even then, it seems a little bit too much, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top one, I'm going to position it a little bit differently so the drop shadow doesn't stand out as much. And that's how you do a drop shadow. You can also go a little wild here, and you can hit the original object on top, hit Control D again, fill the copy in white, and position it a little bit to the top and left, and then use page down to move it back. Let me see, I like that much. And then I'd like to do a little bit of opacity on this one, so I'll make it like 50%. And then you have a little bit of like a light coming in on the top left, and then you have the shadow coming in on the bottom right. So it gives it more sort of a poppy effect. And that's just an option you can play around with. You could try having just the added light on the top and remove the drop shadow on the bottom. These are all different options you can do, but so that's the basic technique there. Now, if you happen to not have a vector copy of the file that you're working with, so I'm going to make a fake bitmap of this fedora logo here. The way you do that, you do Edit, make a bitmap copy, and there's my bitmap copy. And I'm actually running Inkscape from the upstream code repository trunk, so I think there's a bug when they make copies of bitmaps where they're the wrong size, so that's why it looks so blurry. If I scale it down, it probably won't look as bad. But anyway, so say you have a bitmap in Inkscape and you want to add a drop shadow to it. So the way to do that, there's a filter built in for it. You go Filters, Shadows and Glows, and you do Drop Shadow. And by default, it's a 2 pixel blur radius. It's 50% opacity. I think mine is set 1010 on the offsets, but well, I'll show you what happens if I do 1010. I'm going to hit Live Preview, and then you can see as you kind of muck with these different values, you can see how it will affect the final output. But if I do 10 and 10, and then I hit Apply and close it, that's what I got. But now if I want to go back and change it, I have to either do Undo History, or I don't even know what I would do if I didn't have the Undo History to undo that.